bronze triremes cut across the Aegean like sharks. On their sails, the double axe of Knossos gleams in the sun. Islands that once paid tribute to Mycenaean kings now bow to the power of Crete. From the Cyclades to Cyprus, from the Nile Delta to the shores of Anatolia, the Minoans rule the seas. The Mediterranean belongs not to Rome, not to Athens, not to Carthage, but to a people who danced with bulls and worshipped the goddess of nature. This is the world where the Minoans built an empire. In our history, the Minoans flourished between 2000 and 1450 BCE. Based on Crete, they were masters of trade, seafaring, and artistry. They built sprawling palaces at Knossos, Phaistos, and Mallia covered in frescoes of dolphins, dancers, and rituals. Their script, linear, remains undeciphered, their religion mysterious, their society advanced. But they never built a military empire. Around 1450 BCE, the Mycenaeans of mainland Greece absorbed them, and a few centuries later their civilization faded, leaving myths of King Minos and the labyrinth. But what if it had gone differently? What if the Minoans, instead of remaining traders, had built an empire centuries before the Greeks? The key turning point lies around 1600 BC. The Minoans already had naval dominance. Archaeologists call it a thalassocracy, rule of the seas. If instead of merely trading peacefully, they developed a naval military tradition, they could have expanded aggressively. The eruption of Thera Santorini, which devastated much of the Aegean, historically weakened them. But imagine the disaster avoided or overcome. The Minoans rally, using their wealth and ships to dominate their neighbors. Picture it. Minoan fleets, armed with bronze-tipped rams and archers, patrol the Aegean. Islands like Naxos, Rhodes, and Lesbos fall under Cretan governors. Mainland city-states, still young, pay tribute. Knossos becomes not just a palace but an imperial capital. Its storerooms overflow not only with olive oil and grain but with tribute from conquered lands. The bull leaping games, once ritual, become displays of imperial power, honoring the goddess who rules land and sea. Zoom in on lives. A young Mycenaean farmer near Corinth watches as Minoan ships arrive at his coast. Instead of raiders, they are officials demanding tribute. He delivers sheep and grain, learning to carve linear symbols into tablets as receipts. His children grow up speaking Greek at home but learning Minoan at school. On Crete, a merchant's son joins the navy, patrolling islands to enforce Cretan law. He sails as far as Egypt, where he delivers tribute to Pharaoh not as a subject but as an equal envoy of the Minoan Empire. Religion spreads too. The Minoans, centered on goddess worship, spread their cults across the Aegean. Temples dedicated to fertility goddesses and bull symbols appear in mainland Greece. Later Greek myths of Zeus, Europa, and the Minotaur may be distorted memories of centuries under Minoan religious dominance. Instead of Olympian patriarchy, Mediterranean religion develops with matriarchal undertones, forever shaped by Minoan tradition. The political consequences are staggering. Without Mycenaean dominance, the Greek Dark Ages after 1100 BCE may never occur. Instead, a continuous Minoan empire bridges the Bronze Age into the Iron Age. Writing is preserved, linear evolves, and administration expands. Greece doesn't wait until Homer to rediscover literacy, it never loses it. The continuity accelerates Greek, or rather, Minoan Greek civilization by centuries. Egypt, too, shifts. Historically, the Minoans traded with Egypt as respected partners. In this alternate world, Egypt must contend with a naval rival. Pharaohs send embassies to Knossos, perhaps even marrying daughters into the Minoan royal line. Instead of ruling seas unopposed, Egypt shares the Mediterranean with Crete. Diplomacy, trade, and competition weave the fates of the Nile and the Aegean. Now picture the Near East. The Hittites, Babylonians, and Assyrians historically dominated land empires. In this alternate world, they cannot easily project naval power. The Minoans block Anatolian coasts, establish colonies in Cyprus, and control Levantan ports. Cretan governors oversee Byblus, Ugarit, and Tyre centuries before Phoenicia ever rose. The famed Phoenician maritime legacy never takes root. The Minoans take that crown. Culturally, the shift is profound. Greek art and philosophy, so influential in our world, emerge earlier under Minoan patronage. Frescoes evolve into narrative art centuries before Athens' golden age. Philosophy, tied to mathematics and astronomy, develops in Minoan schools by 1000 BCE. Instead of Socrates in the 5th century BCE, we might see a proto-Socrates centuries earlier. The intellectual flowering of Europe begins not in classical Athens but in imperial Knossos. Now imagine global consequences. With an early empire, the Minoans expand further. By 1000 BCE, their fleets reach beyond the Pillars of Hercules into the Atlantic. They may colonize Iberia and even contact early Celtic tribes. By 800 BCE, long before Rome rises, Minoan colonies dot the western Mediterranean. When Carthage would have been founded, the Minoans are already there. Their empire becomes the Mediterranean's unchallenged master. Zoom again to ordinary people. A Celtan Gaul trades tin with Minoan merchants, his village enriched by bronze made with Cretan demand. A Nubian sailor finds himself in Knossos, working in Minoan dockyards. A child in Athens never hears of Homer's Age of Heroes because the heroic past never ended. The empire endures, its history uninterrupted. Religion and language ripple outward. Instead of Greek mythology becoming dominant, Minoan religious imagery saturates the Mediterranean. The double axe, sacred bulls, and goddess symbols appear on altars from Iberia to Anatolia. Language evolves, but with a Minoan foundation. Linear, adapted, and spread becomes the ancestor not of Greek but of an entirely different linguistic family. Europe's languages today may trace their roots not to Latin and Greek, but to Minoan Crete. By the time Rome would have risen, it finds no power vacuum. Italy, like Greece, is a colony or tributary of Crete. Latin culture never flourishes. Rome never expands. Instead, the Minoan Empire, already millennia old, continues its maritime rule. Europe never sees the Roman Empire. Instead, it inherits a Minoan superstate. The Renaissance, which drew on Greece and Rome, instead draws on uninterrupted Minoan traditions. Western civilization as we know it is unrecognizable. By the modern age, global exploration happens earlier. With their seafaring skill, the Minoans may cross the Atlantic centuries before Columbus. The Americas encounter Minoan colonists, not Spaniards. The Columbian exchange occurs under different terms: corn, potatoes, and cacao flowing into a Mediterranean world already shaped by millennia of trade. Industrialization, science, and empire all emerge earlier under different cultural DNA. So, what do we make of it? If the Minoans built an empire, the history of the West changes utterly. No Mycenaeans, no Greece as we know it, no Rome, no Latin legacy. Instead, Europe and the Mediterranean grow under the shadow of Knossos, goddess worship, and maritime power. The first true empire of the seas could have set the course of history thousands of years earlier, so what do you think? Would a Minoan empire have created a more peaceful, trade-based world, or would it have been just as ruthless as Rome? Would we be heirs of bulls and goddesses instead of eagles and emperors? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Sheriff Reactions for daily flips, because history isn't just what happened, it's what could have happened.